Hi, this is Dr. Perry Carpenter. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join me on this week's video. On this week's video, we're having a special broadcast, a special bulletin, a special update on the new medical legal fee schedule. And the reason for this special bulletin is because I've been receiving phone calls and emails, and my phone has been ringing off the hook with questions now from doctors throughout the state of California wondering what is going to happen very shortly when the new medical legal fee schedule becomes adopted in approximately 30 days, now actually less than 30 days. And because the new medical legal fee schedule is going to become effective on April 1st, 2021, qualified medical evaluators are beginning to realize, as they start to investigate and scrutinize the fine print of the new medical legal fee schedule, qualified medical evaluators are beginning to realize that probably their entire procedure of conducting face-to-face evaluations and the entire procedure that they employ in providing their finished product QME report is going to change, and change dramatically as a result of the new medical legal fee schedule. So I want to share with you over the next several series of broadcasts how the new medical legal fee schedule represents changes compared to the old medical legal fee schedule, and how those changes are going to impact you and your evaluations and your report writing procedures. And throughout today's discussion, I want to share with you some of the history and some of the philosophy of the adoption of the new medical legal fee schedule. And I want to share with you some of the historic sequences that have brought us to this point in time, to the point where we need a new medical legal fee schedule, where the system demands a new schedule, where the system has demanded that the product, the end product that we as qualified medical evaluators improve, and how that improved product is now going to be reimbursed at a higher rate, supposedly, by the payers who so desperately rely on the opinions and conclusions in our reports in the resolution of disputed issues in the workers' compensation system. So I'm going to take you back and share with you some of the events that have brought us to this point in time. And then I want to share with you the philosophy of the new medical legal fee schedule. And I want you to know I can speak with authority on the new medical legal fee schedule because I was present at several of the medical legal fee schedule committee meetings that took place and which led to the development of this new medical legal fee schedule. So I was there. I witnessed the conversations back and forth between the doctors, between the payers, between the attorneys, and the members present in the audience or present in the committee were what were referred to as stakeholders. So stakeholders met for 4 8-hour days to hash over the details of the new medical legal fee schedule, and I was there for 2 of the 4 sessions, and I'm going to share with you some of the key points of the conversation between the stakeholders that led to the development of this new medical legal fee schedule. And I should share with you now, and we're going to get into it in much more detail, is that the philosophy of the new medical legal fee schedule is to eliminate the gaming. And gaming was a term that was bounced back and forth between the stakeholders at the medical legal fee schedule committee meetings. And all parties in the system have been accused of gaming, not just qualified medical evaluators, but also claims payers engage in gaming, applicant attorneys engage in gaming, defense attorneys engage in gaming. All parties in the system engage in gaming the system to their particular advantage. Well, in today's discussion, we're going to talk about how qualified medical evaluators have gamed the prior medical legal fee schedule, which led to the current new medical legal fee schedule, the imperfect purpose of which is to eliminate gaming from the stakeholders, and in particular the qualified medical evaluators. And I'll share with you at great length some of the angles that qualified medical evaluators have employed in the past and will employ in the future, even in the context of a new medical legal fee schedule. And then finally, to conclude today's session, and this is going to be a multi-part discussion, probably will extend over the course of 4 separate sessions over the next 4 weeks as we approach the April 1st implementation of the new medical legal fee schedule. I want to share with you today, at the end of today's discussion, how the built-in incentives in the new medical legal fee schedule are going to impact, number one, the qualified medical evaluators, and how the new built-in incentives are going to impact the payers of our reports, and how in some circumstances the QMEs and the payers' incentives are aligned, and how in other cases the incentives of the QMEs versus the incentives of the payers are in no way aligned. And I'm going to share with you what I predict to be some of the potential problematic pitfalls that we're all as stakeholders in the system going to encounter with this new medical legal fee schedule. So with that as our introduction, let's go over some of the history and some of the important sequence of events over the past several years that have brought us to the brink of the state of the system wherein we need a new medical legal fee schedule, and where a new medical legal fee schedule became inevitably required as an instrumental part of an overall and larger changing of the system. Okay, so with that as our introduction, now let's begin today's discussion on the new medical legal fee schedule. Okay, so let's begin today's discussion by talking about some of the historic sequences of events that have brought us to this point in time wherein a new medical legal fee schedule is necessary. And you might be asking yourself, well, why do we need a new medical legal fee schedule? Why now? What was wrong with the prior medical legal fee schedule? Why are we fixing something that apparently didn't seem to be broken? So let's answer some of those questions by exploring some historic sequences of events over the past couple of years that have brought us to the point where a dramatic change in the entire system has become required. Now, for those of you that have been around for any length of time, you might remember some of these key happenings in the system that took place over the past couple years, and some of these key studies that have come out with some disarming or some alarming statistics regarding the qualified medical evaluator population and trends in the performance of qualified medical evaluations. So let's start back in 2017. You might remember that in 2017, the Division of Workers' Compensation implemented what were later to become referred to as the underground regulations. And in 2017, basically what happened was the Division of Workers' Compensation had about all they could take of qualified medical evaluators misusing and abusing the complexity factors under the current medical legal fee schedule. And in an effort to right what was then a sinking ship of QMEs fraudulently billing and overbilling for their QME reports, the Division of Workers' Compensation took a hard stand on the complexity factors and tightened their interpretation of the complexity factors in an effort to bring qualified medical evaluators' billings for their reports into a more reasonable level, as was intended under the medical legal fee schedule in effect at the time. And the DWC tightened down and disciplined many doctors and took away the QME credentials of many doctors who were found to actually have been misusing the complexity factors. So this was a key event that led to where we are today, and we'll expand a little bit more on that as we go. So meanwhile, as the qualified medical evaluator population was reeling from the effects of having their billings so tightly scrutinized by the Division of Workers' Compensation, two research studies came out almost almost simultaneously, but certainly back to back. First was a research update from CWCI, the California Workers' Compensation Institute, and then also from the Workers' Compensation Institute Review Board, wherein they talked about what was happening to the population of qualified medical evaluators over time. And I'm just going to read a couple of statistics from this particular study, the CWCI research update. They told us that the total number of QME providers decreased by 20% between January 2012 and September 2017. So this is a research update in 2018, which had the most recent statistics at the time, which compared the QME population in 2012 to the QME population in 2017, and they found that it had dropped by 20%. In fact, in another more alarming statistic, they found that of the 3,239 physicians who were listed for panel selection in 2012, 1,244, which is 38%, discontinued their QME certification between 2012 and 2017. So 38% of QMEs who were listed on panels disappeared from panels. Now, of course, some new QMEs came into the system, such that the net effect, the net overall effect, was 20% drop in QMEs across the board. But a large population of experienced QMEs who had been in the system for a long period of time were dropping out, basically due to disgruntlement with the system and due to having their billings heavily scrutinized by the Division of Workers' Compensation. So in summary, you might conjecture that the reason that qualified medical evaluators were leaving the system is not because they were being overpaid for their services. QMEs were not leaving the system thinking or speaking out loud and saying that they were uncomfortable with being overpaid for the work that they were performing, but rather they're leaving the system because they felt that they were underpaid, and particularly with tight scrutiny on the billings as a result of the underground regulations, qualified medical evaluators started to envision a dismal future of reducing reimbursements for the work that they were performing. Well, this all came to the attention of the state auditor in 2019, and the state auditor ran an audit on the Division of Workers' Compensation and found that the Division of Workers' Compensation had several mismanagements, if that's even a word, had mismanaged the Qualified Medical Evaluator program in three main areas, and we'll go over those three main areas, including in properly reimbursing qualified medical evaluators for their work. And so this began a series of committee meetings and a series of administrative procedures and even some new rulemaking and new lawmaking by the Division of Workers' Compensation that brought us in July 2020 to the new proposed medical legal fee schedule. So between late 2019 and July 2020 here, the Division of Workers' Compensation was involved in addressing the problems that were raised in the state auditor's report. And we'll go over some of those problems, and we'll go over and we'll explore how the Division of Workers' Compensation addressed those problems. So let's talk about what brought us to this point in time. So the Division of Workers' Compensation implemented what were referred to as the underground regulation, and then a couple of research articles and studies revealed that the qualified medical evaluator population was dwindling. Well, the state auditor picked up on both of these trends, the underground regulations and the dwindling population of qualified medical evaluators, and they found three problems with the QME program as that program is administered by the Division of Workers' Compensation. They found that, number one, there were too few QMEs, and that in particular in certain specialties and in certain locations in the state of California, getting a qualified medical evaluation appointment within 60 days is not possible due to the paucity and scarcity of qualified medical evaluators in certain specialties such as medical orthopedists. Evaluations cannot be scheduled timely because of too few evaluators in those particular specialties or in those particular locations in the state of California. And this is a real problem because a lack of qualified medical evaluators introduces great delay into the system, thereby prolonging the resolution of disputed issues and introducing tremendous cost increases to the system as a whole. And the state auditor traced the scarcity of qualified medical evaluators in the system to a 13-year-old fee schedule, which governs the reimbursement for qualified medical evaluators for the work that they do. In other words, we don't have too few QMEs because the work is so profitable. QMEs are not leaving the system because they're making way too much money doing medical legal evaluations. No, rather, qualified medical evaluators are leaving the system because there's just not enough profitability in the evaluations to interest doctors in certain specialties and to retain high quality, a pool of high quality qualified medical evaluators. So this is an area that the state auditor demanded that the Division of Workers' Compensation address. Second, they accused the Division of Workers' Compensation of misusing their disciplinary power in the adoption of the underground regulations, and that caused quite a stir, but it will not be the subject of today's discussion or this discussion regarding the medical legal fee schedule, but I pointed out to simply indicate to you that it was an instrumental historic event, those so-called underground regulations, that did contribute to bringing us to the point in time where we are now, where we have a new medical legal fee schedule. And then finally, the state auditor accused the Division of Workers' Compensation of not policing or not monitoring or not supervising the quality of qualified medical evaluators' reports. And I can tell you that the stakeholders, particularly the payers of our reports, lament and bemoan the poor quality of qualified medical evaluators' reports. And the problem with poor quality reports is that poor quality reports, as contrasted with high quality reports, okay? Poor quality reports not only do not resolve disputed issues, but they raise new issues which simply increase the costs of the system and increase the delay in delivering benefits to injured workers who sorely need those benefits and for who qualify for those benefits. So poor quality reports are a big problem to the stakeholders. Now, they're not such a problem to qualified medical evaluators, but they're a problem to the parties in the system that use those reports in the resolution of disputed issues. So the state auditor found that the Division of Workers' Compensation had become lax, and their process for policing the quality of reports and for ensuring that QMEs consistently produce high quality reports that can resolve disputed issues, had somehow fallen by the wayside due to other priorities down at the Division of Workers' Compensation. So the state auditor's report in 2019 lit a fire underneath the Division of Workers' Compensation and spurned them into action as required by the state auditor. In other words, the state auditor is a higher authority power than the Division of Workers' Compensation, and the criticisms contained within the state auditor's report sparked the Division of Workers' Compensation and compelled the Division of Workers' Compensation to address and to rectify these shortcomings in the qualified medical evaluation system. So let's go back to our timeline of the sequence of events that have brought us to this point in time. So the state auditor's report was released in November 2019. And then shortly thereafter, once the ripple tsunami effect of that report impacted the Division of Workers' Compensation, the Workers' Compensation began a series of committee meetings. And they began two committee meetings simultaneously. The first committee was the Medical Legal Fee Schedule Committee, the purpose of which was to address the 13-year-old fee schedule then in place. And then in addition to the Medical Legal Fee Schedule Committee, they also created a Report Quality Committee. And Report Quality Committee meetings commenced almost simultaneously with the Medical Legal Fee Schedule Committee meetings. Well, over the course of the remainder of 2019 and into 2020, eventually in July 2020, the new Medical Legal Fee Schedule was proposed. So the Medical Legal Fee Schedule Committee meeting completed its work prior to the Report Quality Committee completing its work. So the Medical Legal Fee Schedules Committee meeting, the committee's work was done approximately here before the new Medical Legal Fee Schedule was published. But the Report Quality Committee's work continues even through today, even through the date of this special bulletin update video. And it was in 2020 that the new Medical Legal Fee Schedule was proposed and was published. So what's interesting about this is that in this sequence of events, the new Medical Legal Fee Schedule was published prior to an agreement from the Report Quality Committee here as to what type of work and what type of reports Qualified Medical Evaluators agree to begin to provide in the future and moving forward. In other words, we decided what we would be paid before we decided what we would do or how hard we would work or how much we would improve our reports for that measure of pay. And so we're here in a situation now where the new Medical Legal Fee Schedule is set to be adopted on April 1st, 2021, and the fees for which Qualified Medical Evaluators are going to be reimbursed is established and set in stone and in law even before an agreement is reached as to what it is we agree to do for that level of pay. And in my opinion, this is completely backwards. We should have first agreed on what it is that we agree constitutes a high quality report and what it is that we agree to address in our reports, and then once the level of work is established and the complexity of that work is established, then and only then can we agree upon what is fair, reasonable, and just compensation for that work. But however, this is how it stands today. We've now agreed on what it is we're going to be paid for the work that we do. Meanwhile, we're still in committee meetings discussing how the QME report needs to change, has to change, and is going to change, even for the fee that has already been established for such work. So I want to bring you into the room of the QME Medical Legal Fee Schedule Committee meetings. As I said, I was present for 2 of the 4 sessions. There was 4 sessions. I arrived late. I arrived for the last 2 sessions. I was invited to attend as a continuing education provider, but I was invited late after much work had already been done and much pecking order and much hierarchy of authority had already been established long before I got there. But let me share with you my experience in the 2 days that I had with the Medical Legal Fee Schedule Committee meeting. By the time I arrived at the Medical Legal Fee Schedule Committee meetings, the philosophy of the new Medical Legal Fee Schedule had been established, the purpose of which was to eliminate what all parties in the room define as gaming. And I want you to picture this scene. of about 40 people arranged circumferentially around the perimeter of a room, and everybody talking over, above, and in between the other person, with qualified medical evaluators accusing claims payers of not paying our bills fully and on time, and claims payers barking back that qualified medical evaluators don't submit their reports within the 30-day timeline, and QME's barking back that, well, hey, we never get the medical records on time, and so that's why our reports are late. And claims administrators barking back and forth and telling qualified medical evaluators that when we do send you the medical records, you do a terrible job on the review of records. You just simply delegate it out to a secretary. And qualified medical evaluators barking back that they don't get their payments within 60 days, and the payments are always reduced and down-coded, and claims payers countering that measure by saying you're overbilling us, and gaming, and all the parties accusing each other of gaming the system. And let me ask you, if you're a qualified medical evaluator listening to this program, or if you're an applicant or a defense attorney listening to this program, have you engaged in any form, shape, manner of gaming of the system? Of course you have. Of course you have. All stakeholders in the system game the system to their advantage. That's the natural operation of each of the parties in the system. They game the system to their own advantage. We all do it. We all are engaged in gaming of our aspect of the system. Well, the purpose of the new medical legal fee schedule is to, as much as possible, eliminate the potential for gaming the system. Now, as I'm going to share with you in ongoing discussions, it's impossible to eliminate gaming. Gaming is natural, and gaming is a normal human condition as each party seeks to attain an advantage from their own particular perspective. But in specifically, qualified medical evaluators were accused by the payers of misusing and abusing the complexity factors under the old or prior medical legal fee schedule. So again, let me ask you, if you're a qualified medical evaluator listening to this discussion, have you ever misused the complexity factors? Of course you have. I know who you are. I know what you do. We all do it. We've all at times stretched the complexity factor of causation. We've stretched the complexity factor of apportionment. We've stretched the complexity factor of prior multiple injuries, and this is a problem for the other stakeholders outside of the qualified medical evaluator. In fact, back during the period of time of the underground regulations, I reviewed many reports of doctors who at the time were being disciplined by the Division of Workers' Compensation, or I should say who were being investigated by the Division of Workers' Compensation, and it was true that doctors were misusing the complexity factor. They were invoking the complexity factor of causation when the report contained no discussion at all of causation. One of the worst reports that I read was a case where a qualified medical evaluator elevated his report to the ML 104 level without any of the supporting complexity factors, okay? So the report was not an ML 104 report, but he decided to throw it up against the wall and see if it would stick, and he threw an ML 104 up against the wall, and then, for reasons that are unknown to us, he simply doubled his fee. Okay, so he elevated the report to an ML 104 when it did not qualify as an ML 104. In other words, it didn't have the complexity to qualify as an ML 104. And then beyond that, he simply doubled the fee of the faulty ML 104 to come up with his final billing amount. And this is something that the payers simply cannot take and will not stand for anymore. And this is what's led to the new development of the new medical legal fee schedule, the purpose of which, the imperfect purpose of which, is to eliminate what all parties refer to as gaming. Now, the new medical legal fee schedule, as we're going to see, has elements in place that are designed to eliminate gaming also by the other parties in the system. There are features that are designed to eliminate gaming of the claims payers, okay? So this was a give and take sort of committee that took 4 sessions to finally arrive at the agreements at what is now the new medical legal fee schedule, okay? So now that we have the new medical legal fee schedule, and we're going to have to live for some unknown period of time with the new medical legal fee schedule, I want to start to dissect the fine print of the medical legal fee schedule and share with you how the new medical legal fee schedule has built-in incentives, which are different from the built-in incentives of the old medical legal fee schedule. And I want to share with you those incentives from both the perspectives of the qualified medical evaluators and also from the perspective of the claims payers. Okay, so let's talk about the stakeholders' incentives. So the new medical legal fee schedule discards the prior complexity factors under the old medical legal fee schedule and eliminates the potential for qualified medical evaluators to game or to misuse or to abuse the complexity factors. But gaming cannot be entirely eliminated from any medical legal fee schedule, either now or into the future. And the current medical legal fee schedule has built-in incentives. Has incentives built in for the qualified medical evaluators, and it has incentives built in for the claims payers as well. And in some cases, those incentives are aligned. In other words, QMEs and payers have the same incentive. And at other cases and at other times, the incentives of the QMEs and the incentives of the payers are diametrically 180 degrees opposed. And so let's just talk about incentives for a moment. And I want to ask you, I wonder if you've ever heard of or read the book entitled Freakonomics. Freakonomics is a book written by an economist, wherein he investigates the power and the operation of incentives in most of all human endeavors. And the conclusion of the book Freakonomics is that people will always and can do nothing but act along the lines of their own incentive. And to illustrate this principle, let me ask you, have you ever seen a circumstance where a child is at a park or at a playground, for example, holding an ice cream cone or a fudgesicle down by her side while she's distracted watching other kids playing out on the playground, and distracted she has this ice cream cone down at her side, and the dog who's sitting nearby sees the ice cream cone, lurches at the ice cream cone and gobbles the ice cream cone. Have you ever seen such a circumstance happen? Well, would you come along and would you say to that dog, "Bad dog, you're a bad dog, don't do that, you're not supposed to do that"? When in fact, all the time, the dog is simply acting along the lines of his own incentive. Dogs, animals, all beings, human beings, qualified medical evaluators, claims payers, always act along the line of their incentive. And they can do nothing but act along the lines of their incentive. It's the natural human condition that's perpetuated in almost all human endeavor, is acting along the line of your own incentive. Well, acting along the line of the incentive of the qualified medical evaluator is what's brought us to the new medical legal fee schedule, the purpose of which is to eliminate what the parties refer to as gaming. But I'm here to tell you that as much as the new fee schedule may succeed at eliminating gaming, it's simply serving to introduce a whole new realm of gaming, the depths and extents of which will be revealed over the next 6 months as we all live through the effects of the new medical legal fee schedule. And I want you to know that I'm already getting phone calls from qualified medical evaluators asking, where are the loopholes? Where are the potential gaming hotspots within the new medical legal fee schedule? And again, as disconcerting as this may be, this is the normal state of the human condition to seek and act along the lines of incentive. And according to the book Freakonomics, they tell us that whatever the incentive, whatever the situation, dishonest people will try to gain an advantage by whatever means necessary. This includes claims payers, this includes qualified medical evaluators, applicant attorneys, defense attorneys, all attempt to gain an advantage by whatever means necessary, even if that involves gaming the incentive scheme. Further, for every clever person who goes to the trouble of creating an incentive scheme, and this might be the Division of Workers' Compensation who's come up with the new medical legal fee schedule, there is an army of people, clever and otherwise, who will inevitably spend even more time to beat it. And this explains why my phone is ringing off the hook with questions from qualified medical evaluators wondering where is the loophole, where is the potential for gaming of the new medical legal fee schedule. And even though it's early and the new medical legal fee schedule has yet to be adopted, I want to share with you what I believe to be at least some of the superficial incentives of both the QMEs and the superficial incentives of the claims payers. So as we go into the adoption of the new medical legal fee schedule, what is it that the qualified medical evaluators are expecting that the new medical fee schedule will bring to them and will benefit them? Well, the qualified medical evaluators are hoping that the new medical legal fee schedule results in fewer mind-numbing, meddlesome, problemsome, profit-draining problems associated with the evaluations. They're expecting higher pay for the initial evaluations. They're expecting medical records to arrive much more timely. And this is a big problem for qualified medical evaluators that we're hoping that the new medical legal fee schedule will resolve. And I just want to share with you, if you're a non-qualified medical evaluator listening to this program, I just want to share with you an occurrence that happened just yesterday related to medical records. Now, this recording is being recorded on a Tuesday, so yesterday was Monday, and I was calling an applicant attorney for a copy of their cover letter for an evaluation to be rendered today, the very next day on Tuesday. In other words, later today. I have an evaluation for which I have not yet received a cover letter, and despite phone calls after phone calls after phone calls, cover letter and medical records have yet to arrive. So this was yesterday, Monday, when I called the applicant attorney's office again, but I should back up and tell you that this was a follow-up phone call. This was a follow-up phone call. Prior phone call occurred 2 days earlier on Friday before the weekend when I spoke to the legal assistant at the applicant attorney's office, and he promised that on Friday he would get the cover letter out, and he was also simultaneously sending out the medical records. This was on a Friday. The evaluation is scheduled for today, Tuesday. Okay, so we have a weekend in between. And the legal assistant said, I will be getting the reports out, the medical records out today. Well, I said to the legal assistant, Mr. Legal Assistant, if you get the records out immediately, like right now, this minute, and the medical records are delivered exactly timely through the mail, in other words, there's no delay, they're picked up on Friday, transported Saturday over Sunday, and they arrive at my office at noon on Monday, okay, noon on Monday, and I have clinical patients in my practice until 6 p.m., when do you expect that I would have time to review them? Because he assured me that they would arrive in time for the evaluation. I asked him, when do you think I would review those? Do you think I would review them from 9 to 12 p.m. the night before? Do you think that I would get up at 4 a.m. the morning of the evaluation? In other words, the applicant attorney's office was not thinking. That's what was happening. They were not thinking. And guess what? The cover letter did not come. And so in a follow-up phone call yesterday, which was Monday, the legal assistant promised me that they meant to get to the cover letter and the medical records, but that they would email the cover letter to me immediately, and the medical records he promised to get out that very day, which of course means that if he did that, they will arrive later on in the week, long after the evaluation has come and gone. And this is a big, big problem for qualified medical evaluators that we're hoping gets resolved under the new medical legal fee schedule. We're hoping to be better reimbursed for hassles and uncertainties in the program, such as missed appointments. Now we're going to be getting some mandatory pay for missed appointments, and that's an improvement. We're expecting better pay for depositions. We're expecting the medical records to come to us in a better state of organization. And we're expecting a higher pay for supplemental reports. And so qualified medical evaluators have several expectations, the purpose of which is to improve life as a qualified medical evaluator. Well, how does this compare to the expectations of the payers? Well, in exchange for better circumstances and better life conditions for qualified medical evaluators, including higher pay, the payers have some expectations of their own. They're going to be expecting better quality reports from us as qualified medical evaluators. In other words, they're hoping to squeeze juice from stones, better juice, tastier juice, more functional juice, juice that can actually resolve disputed issues. They want better quality reports that resolve issues the first time through, thereby reducing the need for supplemental reports and follow-up face-to-face evaluations and all these second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th cycles of actions that qualified medical evaluators use to expand their QME practice, that they use to game the system and increase the case value of each evaluation that they get. The payers are expecting that those costs and those delays are going to be eliminated under the new medical legal fee schedule. Payers believe that the higher pay that's offered under the new medical legal fee schedule, which I'm going to discuss in our next session, it's not actually higher pay, but it's perceived higher pay. But they believe that higher pay is somehow going to lead to better quality reports. And I'm going to share with you that this could be no further from the truth. Higher quality reports are not in any way related to, tied to, associated with higher pay. The payers are expecting that qualified medical evaluators will understand what are the issues in dispute and will quickly and accurately getting to resolving those disputed issues with opinions and conclusions that qualify as substantial medical evidence, such that those opinions and conclusions can be immediately used to resolve the disputed issues. And because the new medical legal fee schedule involves a flat rate fee schedule, claims administrators can better prepare and predict their costs, and they can better prepare the reserves of the case, knowing what each level of cycle of action from the qualified medical evaluator is going to cost. In other words, initial evaluations have a fixed cost. Supplemental reports have a fixed cost. Follow-up face-to-face evaluations have a fixed cost, and these fixed costs are going to better allow the claims payers to set aside their reserves and to be able to predict future costs associated with the medical legal side of the claim. So with those expectations of both the qualified medical evaluators and of the claims payers, let's talk about the incentives that each of those groups have under the old medical legal fee schedule, which are now disappearing and being replaced by the new incentives under the new medical legal fee schedule. So with regards to the QMEs under the old medical legal fee schedule, qualified medical evaluators were incentivized, were motivated to maximize the complexity factors, to maximize the time-based billing codes. So to spend maximum time on the review of records, maximum face-to-face time. They were incentivized to expand and explore the causation section of their report. They were incentivized to dig for prior multiple injuries to the same body part because that was one of the old complexity factors. They were incentivized to expand their apportionment discussion. So in the old days, complexity of the report was determined by these so-called complexity factors, which are now gone under the new medical fee schedule. Therefore, under the new medical fee schedule, complexity is now being replaced and is being substituted by proxy by the number of pages of medical records. There are no more complexity factors such as review of records, face-to-face time, etc. Now, complexity is determined by one thing and one thing only, and that is the number of pages of medical records. So qualified medical evaluators are incentivized and are hoping for case evaluations that involve large numbers of pages of medical records. And because the new flat rate fee schedule is not based on time, the QME is incentivized to minimize the time involved with the review of such records. In other words, the review of records is based on pages. It is not based on time. So the qualified medical evaluator, like that dog on the playground lurching for the ice cream cone, is incentivized to minimize the time involved with the review of records, right? If a qualified medical evaluator receives 500 pages of medical records, he has an incentive to review those records in 1 hour versus review them in 2 hours. The incentive is to minimize time. The incentive is to minimize face-to-face time and get to the point in the face-to-face evaluation. The qualified medical evaluator will still be obligated to discuss causation in those cases that require it, but the qualified medical evaluator is going to be incentivized to systematize the causation with conclusory opinions only. And in contrast to digging for a history of prior multiple injuries in the face-to-face evaluation, which could take extended time, again, the qualified medical evaluator is going to be incentivized to minimize the face-to-face time for the same flat rate fee of reimbursement. And finally, with regards to an old complexity factor such as apportionment, qualified medical evaluators are simply going to systematize the apportionment discussion with conclusory opinions. So this is just a small handful of some of the changes that you're going to see qualified medical evaluators adopting into their new evaluations simply because they're acting along the lines of their built-in incentives, and they can be expected to do no differently, just as you would not expect the dog in the playground to fail to lurch at an ice cream cone, which is being dangled in his face. Okay, so here's some of the incentives of the qualified medical evaluators. What are some of the incentives of the claims payers? Under the new medical legal fee schedule, what is the incentive of the payers? Well, because the new medical legal fee schedule is not based on time, it's simply based on the number of pages of medical records that are required to be reviewed by the qualified medical evaluator, claims administrators are now going to be taking a look, a better look, a harder look, and a longer look at that pile of mismatched, disorganized random chaos that is the stack of medical records that are delivered to the Qualified Medical Evaluator, and they're going to be incentivized to minimize the number of pages of medical records that are delivered to the QME. QMEs can expect that the medical records that they review are going to be the medical records that the claims administrator has determined necessary, or only the medical records that the claims administrator has determined to be necessary to the resolution of the disputed issue in the case. So qualified medical evaluators can expect minimal numbers of pages of medical records as claims payers attempt to decrease the reimbursement rate for all levels of evaluations, whether those be initial evaluations or follow-up evaluations or even supplemental reports. Claims payers are going to be motivated to minimize the number of pages. In addition, claims payers are going to be incentivized to utilize what's referred to as the remedial supplemental report, which has a $0 reimbursement for those circumstances where the claims payer has to request a supplemental report from the Qualified Medical Evaluator simply to address an issue that the Qualified Medical Evaluator failed or neglected to address in the initial report. Now, for some Qualified Medical Evaluators under the old medical legal fee schedule, the supplemental report was a way of life, was a practice building procedure, was an income doubler and tripler, and was a standard operating procedure for Qualified Medical Evaluators. To be vague and nonspecific in their initial reporting, thereby requiring one or more of the parties to request a supplemental reimbursable report for the Qualified Medical Evaluator. And under the new medical legal fee schedule, these supplemental reports that are simply being requested by one or more of the parties to address an issue that the Qualified Medical Evaluator should have addressed in the initial report are not going to be reimbursed. And there's going to be an incentive for the claims administrators to define each and every supplemental report as a remedial report. And there's going to be a war between the Qualified Medical Evaluators and the claims payers as to what exactly constitutes a remedial supplemental report versus what constitutes a reimbursable, compensable supplemental report. And I can tell you that the claims payers are going to have every incentive to define the supplemental report request as a remedial supplemental report. So this is just a partial list of some of the incentives as they're known at this point in time of the claims payers, and certainly this list is going to grow over the next 90 and 120 days as we get deeper and more involved in living with the new medical legal fee schedule. So doctors, isn't that fascinating? The new medical legal fee schedule is upon us and is scheduled to be implemented in less than 30 days. And we have much more to discuss about the new medical legal fee schedule, but I wanted to share with you today what I perceive to be some of the areas where the new medical legal fee schedule, where it was designed to eliminate gaming, I wanted to share with you some areas where I expect and anticipate that gaming will persist and will continue to evolve as each of the parties in the system continue to operate along the gradient of their incentive. So much as objects fall down a gravitational gradient, the players and the parties and the stakeholders in the workers' compensation system, in the medical legal evaluation system, will continue to operate along their incentive gradient. And so gaming is going to continue to persist and exist through this fee schedule and into the next dozen fee schedules into the future. And I wanted to share with you some areas where I anticipate the entire system of how we as Qualified Medical Evaluators approach our face-to-face evaluations and how we approach the production of our final QME reports inevitably has to change as we operate along the gradient of our incentives. Now, in our next session, I want to get into the exact language of the codes, the ML200 codes now. Okay, our existing ML100 codes are being replaced with ML200 codes. And in our next session, I want to dissect each of those codes and share with you some ideas as to how you can comport your face-to-face evaluation and comport your QME report writing process to fully maximize your compensation based upon each of the new codes that we have available to us now under the new medical legal fee schedule. So I want to thank you for taking the time to join me on today's discussion. I look forward to being with you on our very next discussion, as well as we discuss this all-important, all-encompassing new development in the system that we love so much, having to do with the new medical legal fee schedule. For now, this is Dr. Perry Carpenter. I'm wishing you best of success in your career as a qualified medical evaluator.